You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
A jam-packed edition of the show before the show from MILB.com is here. Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday afternoon, May 29th. My name is Tyler Vaughn. Sam Dykstra on the other side of the internet in New York City. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler.
I think that's how the internet works.
Yeah, my can, it seems to be tethered pretty well.
Yeah.
Going across the United States of America. Is yours coming through okay?
It's pretty, pretty clear. It seems like it's a good connection, can to can,
right,
as they do in 2019. And we're talking all things minor league baseball on this week's episode, as we do always. Thanks for tuning in to the show before the show, wherever you find us at MILB.com/podcast, or on your iPhone or your Android or everywhere else. You can get in touch with the show, podcast at MILB.com. We got an email in from Charles Belfield, one of our loyal listeners, who just sent us an email with a link inside to a Democrat and Chronicle story from Rochester, New York. And the subject line of the email, quote, "Rochester Red Wings sell more than 11,000 hot dogs on Memorial Day." And Charles just wrote, "You're welcome." So, we're covering it all this week. There were 50
We are
cents,
talking about Rochester later, though, with Ben.
We are going to have a little Rochester conversation. They were 50-cent hot dogs. They limited people to 4 hot dogs per person per transaction. A lot of teams do $1 hot dog night. This is like, you're really tempting fate with 50-cent hot dogs.
Right. So 4 per person per transaction?
Yeah. So I guess you can buy 4, go to the back of the line, and then just walk back up and buy 4 more.
But if we were both on the transaction, would we get 8? Because it's 4 for me and 4 for you?
Per person, I would think so. Yeah.
We'll have to test this out sometime.
Okay.
If somebody wants to have a quarter dog night, maybe we'll go in. with what our budget is for this podcast, we can do quarter a dog night, I think.
So with that, we'll get started on 3 Strikes for this week's episode. We got some big promotion news from a couple of different spots in the minor leagues. Jared Kelenic, the second-ranked prospect in the Seattle Mariners organization and MLB.com's number 45 overall, batted .303, .391, .564 with 10 homers and 26 RBIs in 49 games with Class A West Virginia in the South Atlantic League. He is gone from the South Atlantic League now, bumped up to the California League and Class A Advanced Modesto. A little bit higher up the ladder, Tampa Bay Rays organization, Brendan McKay, the third-ranked prospect in that system, has made the jump to AAA, where he actually debuted last night with 5 scoreless innings for the AAA Durham Bulls. That was after a strong start to the season in the Southern League with AA Montgomery. He led the league in strikeouts, ERA, whip, and opponent's batting average. Those 2 guys, maybe not a huge surprise that they were going to make this climb this year, but maybe a surprise with how quickly, especially in the case of Jared Kelenic, who goes 49 games in the Sally League, makes the jump up to the California League. And that's a guy who was just drafted in the first round last year, obviously by the New York Mets, and then traded to the Seattle Mariners over the offseason. But that's a quick climb for a kid who's 19 already being high A.
Yeah, and I mean, all the reports we've heard about Kelenic, even going back to last year when he was in the GCL and rookie level Kingston, is that, he is really tooled up. He has 5 tools that all could be average to plus right now. He's shown that even after the move to the Mariners system. Right now, he's the number 42 overall prospect in baseball. I could see him ending the year as top 25, one of the most exciting outfield prospects in the game. We'll have to see what he does with this transition to the Cal League. As much as we say, hey, the Cal League's a hitter's league, he should thrive there. He's still facing more difficult pitching. And, for somebody who was playing high school ball just a year ago, this is really interesting. He is a little bit older in terms of a high school pick. He's 19 now, but he'll be turning 20 in July. I don't think that affects the calculus here that much. I think it purely just comes down to performance and, the type of tools that he has. You mentioned, hitting .303 with a .391 OBP, .564 slugging percentage. That's almost right on the line of the kind of 3, 4, 5 I love seeing out of hitters. 10 home runs, 7 stolen bases, showing off that good power for his age and also above average run tool. Just ticking all the boxes, and to see the Mariners push him in this way shows that they know what they have. And they might be even more excited about him now than the day they acquired him in that Robinson Cano, Edwin Diaz deal. So getting to see him push like this is really, really neat. Mets fans, I'm sorry that this has kind of happened to you. Justin Dunn, another prospect that moved over, he's had a pretty good year so far this year. And meanwhile, Cano and Diaz haven't pushed the Mets over in the way that they had hoped when they made that deal, and it seemed like a very short-term move. Even if Diaz has a couple of years of control, they haven't reaped the rewards in the way that they have. Meanwhile, Kelenic is becoming one of the most promising prospects in baseball. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Really cool to see him move here, and what he can do in the Cal League is going to be fascinating. So kudos to the Mariners for pushing him when they thought he was ready, and kudos to Kelenic for making it happen.
Brendan McKay makes that jump also. He has been really interesting throughout his minor league career. Obviously the start to his career as a two-way player. This year, the Tampa Bay Rays really wanted him to focus on being a pitcher. He's gone in 9 total outings this year between Montgomery and Durham. Now the season-long ERA is 1.16, a 4-0 record. He's made 1 relief appearance, but his numbers this year, he hadn't put up bad numbers really anywhere throughout his minor league career as a pitcher. But this year, you can tell this is the calling card. This is what's going to get him to the big leagues.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to be much more of a pitcher, I think, than a hitter. I was thinking about this earlier today. I mean, yeah, he had 5 scoreless innings in his pitching debut for Durham. If the Rays could find any way to do it, part of me thinks they would love to send McKay to AAA and keep the hitter at Montgomery.
Yeah.
There's no way that can happen, obviously. You can't clone the guy and send him 2 different places, but he needs work offensively. That hasn't clicked in quite the way that everybody hoped it would. But pitching-wise, he needed the challenge. I mean, it wasn't going to do him any good, especially if you see him as primarily a pitcher who could someday maybe help out in a kind of Ohtani role. He needed to be challenged. You mentioned all those ways he was leading the Southern League at the time. He's coming out of college himself, 2 years removed from that now. And, so getting the push to AAA, if he continues to flounder at Durham, that's fine. Let him be a pitcher full time. I think they're not going to want to make that decision until 2 months from now, maybe. But who knows? Maybe McKay, the pitcher, takes off at Durham the way he did at Montgomery, and we're looking for another challenge for him. And the Rays, the way they're contending this year, are going to need all the help they can get. They're not going to let an elite starting pitcher just kind of sit there at Durham because they want him to maybe hit 3 times a week. But off to a good start for him. Going to continue to watch him and see how his package of pitches, which mostly was above average, nothing maybe truly plus, but he had good control. See what that can do against AAA hitters and with the AAA ball now that he's pitching with that for the first time.
So both those categories, both those conversations, I should say, strike 1 for this week's episode. Strike 2, the Major League Baseball first-year player draft is flying close. That didn't even make sense. But it's coming up is what I meant. And it will be, of course, on MLB Network, and Sam Dykstra will be there as well. This is a class that has been pretty well headlined throughout the lead up to this. I mean, even dating back to the end of last year by Adley Rutschman, who is the catching prospect from Oregon State University. He seems like he's been the clear-cut number 1 pretty much the entire year. Starts, by the way, does the draft on June 3rd. But beyond that, just some looks at who else could be names that jump out on either day 1 or other guys that you like this year, Sam.
Yeah, so before we get into that real quick, let me just run through the first round of the draft, the first couple of picks. The Orioles have the first overall selection, worst team in baseball last year. That's what happens in the current setup. Royals at number 2, White Sox at 3, Marlins at 4, Tigers at 5, Padres at 6, Reds at 7, Rangers at 8, the Braves at 9, which they get because they did not sign Carter Stewart last year. So they took him, I think, with the 8th pick. They moved to the 9th pick, and the Giants round out the top 10. So that's the top 10 of the draft. These are guys these are organizations that are going to be competing for the cream of the crop, trying to do the calculus of, okay, how do these guys fit into our signing bonus pools? How much were you going to sign for? How much risk do we want to take on? But while we're talking about bonus pools, the Arizona Diamondbacks, who I did not mention there, their first pick is at number 16. They actually have the largest bonus pool at $16 million. That's more than $2 million more than what the Orioles have. The Orioles have the second largest pool at $13.8 million. A big reason for that is the D-backs own 7 of the first 75 selections this year. So they're going to be big players in the ways the Royals and the Rays were last year. The Royals, picked up a lot of starting pitching. I did a story today, realized all 5 of their first picks were college pitchers. They really strengthened that portion of their farm system last year because of their large pool. The Rays, when Matthew Liberatore slipped, they were able to pick him up, sign him. Shane McClanahan slipped, they pick him up. This is a chance for the Arizona Diamondbacks to add some real depth here. Or if guys start slipping, they can take chances and say, hey, we can sign you above slot, even if you do fall to the middle of the first round, because we have all this other money backed up here. Maybe you take a senior sign later, sign that guy for like $50,000. You use all the rest of that money on somebody you took at the top of the draft. So Arizona's this system I'm going to be watching the most heavily outside of what the Orioles do here with the number 1 pick. You mentioned Adley Rutschman. Seems like the way everybody's talking about this, I don't know if this is pre-draft hype. I've watched a little bit of him. He is a really, really good hitter. He's a really good defender behind the plate at catcher. Seems like he could be a generational talent in that way. People haven't talked about a catcher like this since maybe Buster Posey. So to see Rutschman do this is really interesting going into his draft year. Everybody agrees he's the top overall draft pick. But it's the Orioles who are selecting. And if you know the Orioles these days, they have a new front office regime in there, which came from the Astros. The Astros rebuilt a lot through the draft. They had a similar situation like this a couple of years back. I think it was 2012 with Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton was the top overall draft prospect going into that year. The Astros decide not to take Buxton. They take Carlos Correa because he would sign for a little bit more below slot. They use that to go off and get Rio Ruiz and Lance McCullers. Carlos Correa helps them win a World Series. Lance McCullers helps them win a World Series. Does that regime now in Baltimore, Mike Elias being one of them, it's not the full organization, but it's a lot of the pieces that made those decisions. Do they go for something similar here? It seems like, reading the tea leaves, it's going to be Rutschman. When you're the Baltimore Orioles, you don't want to overthink it. Rutschman could help them out very quickly. Ticks a lot of boxes, could become the shining gem of that system that, even though they're in rebuild, still isn't quite there to being a primo system in the game. But if they can find some deal there with some of the other guys, maybe they let Rutschman go, and that's when things kind of get interesting, because it seems like the Royals would take Bobby Witt Jr. at number 2, shortstop out of Texas, out of a Texas high school. And Bobby Witt Jr. himself is one of the better prospects we've seen in the game in a couple of years. He could have plus power from the shortstop position, which would be really interesting. He is already a plus runner. He's a really gifted defender as well. He would do well to anywhere he goes. He's going to become one of the best prospects in that system. He would definitely do that for the Royals. It seems like they're going to take him at 2, so maybe Rutschman would slip even past the top 2. We'll have to see. The one guy I'm going to be keeping my eye on the most out of those top 2, or beyond those top 2 rather, is Andrew Vaughn out of California. This is somebody who's already won a Golden Spikes Award, and that's before he got to his junior year. He's all around maybe the best hitter in this draft. He's got a plus hit tool. He's got a plus power tool. Could even add some more power there as he moves on to the pro game. But he's a right-handed hitting, right-handed throwing first baseman. And those are extremely rare nowadays. It's really tough to fit those guys into your lineup. And he's only going to be first base. I don't think I've heard some stories about him moving around, trying to show a little bit of versatility, but this is a guy who's well below average run tool. The only way he's going to make to the majors, I think, as a first baseman. So, who's willing to take the risk on that? Do the Orioles jump at him and add his bat to the mix? Do they choose somebody more well-rounded in Rutschman? As interesting as these top two talents are, it still doesn't seem like anything is settled quite yet, which is going to make Monday all the more interesting. And, beyond the teams we've mentioned, the White Sox are always looking to rebuild. They still need to add a little bit of talent to their system. The Marlins definitely can't miss on this draft. I hate saying that, but if they're going to make this rebuild work, they really need to take somebody quality at number 4. I think they would love to have Vaughn. I don't have any inside info on that, but I think they would love to have somebody like Vaughn fall to them at 4, because then that's somebody that they can build around, and that's somebody they can dream on very quickly, making the major leagues. But yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on all of this going into Monday night. I think Kelsey Hennigan, our coworker, is going to be joining with me. She's going to be doing a lot of social content from the room in Secaucus. So it should be a lot of fun. Make sure to follow along with our constantly updating recap of the draft. And next week we'll have some interviews with some of the draft picks that were there in the room and at the draft luncheon beforehand, coming to the podcast and to the site.
There is a prospect who is currently ranked the 114th on the top 200 draft prospects from MLB.com, and his name is Thomas Dillard, which could be shortened to Tom Dillard. And our guest on this week's episode of the show before the show is Tim Dillard. So everything is connected. I don't think they're related, but it's something to think about. Although Tim's dad, Steve Dillard, did go to Ole Miss for college, so it's a possibility. That's where Thomas Dillard goes as well. So Thomas, come on the show. So from that, we'll pivot to strike 3, which is a review of last year's draft class. We're a year removed, or just about, from the 2018 Major League Baseball first-year player draft. We just talked about a guy who was taken in that draft, and Jared Kelenic, who's been bumped up to Class A Advanced. Sam, when you look back on 2018, reviewing some of the things that you thought then and you think now, what stands out most? You there?
Yeah, so just looking back on it, we talked with Rutschman about who was the kind of tacked on number 1 prospect going into the draft, and Casey Mize was that last year. And to see him follow through this year between Class A Advanced Lakeland, now with AA Erie, hopefully pretty soon with AAA Toledo and eventually Detroit, has been really, really something special. And I would hope that the O's can kind of take from that what the Tigers did with that top overall pick, and not overthink it. Take the guy who seems most tooled up, most ready to move quickly, has proven himself time in and time out. So, yeah, Mize continuing to be the number 1 prospect from last year's draft has been just really cool to follow through on. But what's more surprising to me, and what's more fun to me, I think, is looking outside the first round and finding the guys who right now, even just 12 months later, we're already thinking about as, not maybe top 100 talents quite yet, but somebody we have to follow day in and day out. And one of those is Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox organization. They got him in the 7th round coming out of Long Beach State last year, and he might already be the steal of the draft. He leads the minors with a 4.03 average over 204 plate appearances. So this isn't a small sample, and he's playing at Class A Advanced Salem. So this isn't a situation where it's a college guy doing well against Class A, which we have tons of examples of that. He's about where he should be, and he is the only minor leaguer right now with an average above 400. I think the closest guy to him at the start of today was Xavier Edwards at 377, which is very good, but it's 26 points of difference between Jarren Duran and everybody else. The thing that always stood out about him was his plus speed. That's definitely helped him out this year. He's got a 5.04 batting average against balls in play, or batting average on balls in play. That's not sustainable whatsoever, but it does speak, again, to that speed. He's got mostly a line drive approach right now, a good amount of ground balls as well. So he's going to have to beat out balls to get hits, and that's what he's been doing. It's going to, he's mostly gap to gap, not a ton of power But again, with that plus speed, he's played all three outfield positions, and he's somebody who we have to watch now almost every night to see how long will he keep 400 for. Last year we had the 400 chase with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Duran is the only hope we have right now. Doubt that's going to last very long, of course, as that BABIP kind of normalizes. But how long can you keep this going? We're definitely going to have to keep an eye on that. Xavier Edwards technically lasted outside the first round last year. He was actually the last person in the room to hear their name called. So it was really neat when he did get picked, because some of those guys who were there with him and some of the family members all saw him play on Team USA. So it was like local Jersey kid got picked. The room just erupted because they were all so happy for him. But he got taken 38th overall last year. Like I mentioned, he's been hitting 377 through 43 games. He's walked more times than he struck out, 19 walks, 16 strikeouts through 190 plate appearances. He's also got some good wheels. He has 14 stolen bases. It just seems like a prototypical leadoff man. Very little power to show or to speak of right now. But when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he said, listen, I'm going to take my hits however they give them. If they want to shift on me, I will lay down a bunt and beat out the bunt. If they want to move a certain way, I'm going to try to hit the other way and get through however I can. And to see that strategy play out this well for him has been really neat. They've played him both at shortstop and second base, mostly because that Fort Wayne roster is pretty well loaded with middle infielders. I don't think there's much of a doubt he could stick to short if he needed to, but also he's in the organization with Fernando Tatis Jr., so we'll have to see how that plays out as he continues to get closer. But those are two guys I'm keeping my eye on from outside the first round right now. In terms of first round guys, we already mentioned Jarred Kelenic, I think is really helping his case. I think Nick Madrigal a year later, Edwards we talk about as being super good with the hit tool, but very little power. Madrigal is supposed to be even better with the hit tool with absolutely no power. And again, some good speed and ability to stick up the middle. But his hit tool quite hasn't been there at Class A Advanced Winston-Salem, and I think that's hurt his stock. If he's not going to hit well above 300, his value goes down pretty quickly. So he hasn't done that. Grayson Rodriguez in the Orioles organization has pitched extremely well at Class A Delmarva, another Texas product, who continues to post zeros. I think he had his first 7-inning outing of the year the other day. Really, really impressive stuff for him. And again, in an organization that needs pop-up guys to happen. So getting him with the 11th overall pick and making him into one of the best right-handed pitching prospects in the game is really promising for the Orioles. Only been 12 months. Obviously, we're going to be following a lot of these guys for a long time to come, but really cool to see just 12 months later how our opinions have changed. And in the case of Mize and some others, how our opinions on draft day last year have actually held up incredibly well 1 year later.
We're just that good. What can we say? That's 3 strikes for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Coming up, we're going to go to the Texas Rangers system and AAA Nashville, where we find one of the modern-day cult heroes of minor league baseball. Tim Dillard joins the show next. The Texas Rangers organization is where we find this week's guest for the Show Before the Show from MILB.com, and there is right-handed pitcher Tim Dillard, who is just setting a slew of records for the Nashville Sounds at the AAA level, and also maybe losing his hearing by playing with his kids in the pool this week. Tim, welcome to the show, man. What's going on? How are you, aside from the hearing thing?
Yeah. It's just water in the ear. I guess it's worth it, playing with my kids in the pool.
It's a good memory to have, at least, if you never hear again. It's it's a positive.
Yeah. Is it though? Man, what a sacrifice.
Well, Tim,
being a dad.
Let's talk about the last couple of weeks alone have been pretty cool for you to get a chance to go back to a place where you spent some time while in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. Now you're back there as a member of the Texas Rangers with AAA Nashville. You already had the wins record for that franchise. As of the 27th of May, you set the franchise strikeout record. Nashville, I would think, has got to be a pretty special place for you. What have the last couple of weeks been like, kind of taking in the scope of your career?
Everybody goes out with a idea of what their career is going to be, and it rarely works out that way. And I don't know. If I could go back, I would probably change some things, but I'm proud of my career. This is part of my 9th season, and I just broke the strikeouts record. Yeah, but the guy that held it before me, Jamie Worley, he did it in 3 years. Took me parts of 9. So,
hey man, a record's a record.
Oh yeah. But it's good. This is home. My wife and I, we started living here after my first season in AAA in 2007. So this is home. Like, I just left home, played with my kids, and drove to the field and got your text and said, hey, let's chat.
Well, when you look back, this is a career that dates back, drafted in 03, or in 02 rather, and debuted in 03. Yep. You've made almost 500 career appearances in the minor leagues, almost 75 in the major leagues. And at this stage, I mean, when you look back at the fact that you've been playing professional baseball for over a decade and a half now, you're a 34th round pick. Like, there are not a whole lot of guys from the 34th round that make it 5 years, much less 15 years. How does that, if you could go back and talk to, 19, 20-year-old Tim, do you think that there was any way that you would have ever believed that this would have turned into what it's turned into for you?
Definitely not. Because everybody has that goal. If you're getting into pro ball, I mean, everyone has the same goal. They want 10 years in the show. And so you build up this idea that if you don't get that, then you're a failure. But that's just simply not the case. I mean, if I told my wife that, hey, sorry, but the last 15 years of our lives has been a total waste, I'm not going to do that, because, the experiences I've had and the people I've met and the places I've gone, I mean, it's hard to put a price on that. It's hard to put into words, really, because it is a lifestyle and you're doing it together. And so, I mean, everyone's path is different. Everyone's is unique. And mine just happens to be, over 15 years in the minor leagues. So I don't know. I would change some things for sure, but if I could go back and talk to myself, I would just say, hey, man, enjoy the ride, because I felt like I was always trying to get somewhere and at the expense of the moment. So now that I've felt like I thought I'd be retiring in the last, every year for the last 7 years, it gets sweeter. I don't know when I'm going to play again. So every time I'm out there, it's as sweet as it can be.
It's that everlasting philosophical question of everybody thinks that once they get to a destination is when they're going to be happy, but it's really like the trip to the destination. That's the thing you have to be able to take enjoyment from. And that's not easy when you're a pro ball player and you're riding buses around and you're slogging through the grind of the minor leagues. When you got done with the Brewers organization at the end of last year, you elect free agency in November, and there's no guarantee for anybody who goes into the free agency period that you're going to find a destination and that somebody's going to decide, all right, this is a guy that we want as a member of our organization, regardless of your age or what you've accomplished. That's never a guarantee. When Texas called you, when they made contact and said, we want to make this a deal, what was that process like for you? And especially after being with the Brewers for so long, to go to a different system, what did that feel like?
Strange. I was okay. I was trying to get with the Brewers back again, and I thought, maybe they had a chance at getting their AAA in Nashville, and thought, hey, I could, one more time in the sun, maybe I can, play at home and live the dream. The AAA dream is to, have a job and have a job where you live. And so that was kind of what I was hoping for. Brewers contacted me, said, man, we're not in Nashville, probably not going to sign you back. And so I thought I was done. I was at home just thinking, all right, what's next? Maybe I'll find something else to do, because money's fun, need some of that. And the Rangers called. They said, hey, we got Nashville and we want you to be there. And I didn't think it was really them. I thought somebody was playing a prank on me, but they convinced me. And they told me when they were going to sign me, and they did. They told me they're going to bring me to big league camp, and they did. And they told me how they were going to put me in Nashville, and they did. So, it's a guy in my position shouldn't be playing this long, shouldn't be having opportunities like this. And so, because of all the knowledge that I have in baseball, it is a miracle. It's a miracle.
This stage of your career, being a guy who has so much baseball experience at every professional level under your belt, how now at 35 do you get to communicate with younger guys who come up? I would imagine you're a sounding board for a lot of those guys who are kind of wondering, what it's going to be like at the major league level or the things to do to be successful at AAA. How has that manifested itself in your career when you've gotten to this stage of being a veteran guy?
Yeah, that's just it. The conversations we have in the pen, my conversation has changed over the years, and it's not so much like wondering what's going on as opposed to how to deal with what's going on. Baseball is easy in the sense that they tell you where to go, when to be there, what to wear, how to pitch or how to play or how to swing, and all that kind of stuff. Like all that, you'll get a chance to really express yourself and to think outside the box. And so sometimes it's hard for players to actually deal with that. Man, I don't really have a lot of control in this game. You can only control a very, few things, and that a lot of times you want to feel like you're in control of your own destiny and all that. But it's how do you deal with that, realizing, man, maybe I'm not that important, and maybe I don't really have a grip on what's going on. And so for me, it's just, I wouldn't say it's a counseling session, but it's just, hey, man, if I can save you some mental anguish, save you a few months of, figuring out what you're doing with your life kind of thing, that's what I want to be there for. Because, hey, if you don't have problems and the minor leagues is easy for you and you go to the big leagues and big leagues is easy, that's awesome. But it's not really realistic. And I don't know, we talk about life stuff just because, most of them don't have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And been doing it this long. So it's just tips and tricks. The Pacific Coast League is probably the hardest league there is, just travel-wise and the grind of the season. So it's just tips and tricks, how to beat the system, how to get through it, what your mindset could be, what it shouldn't be. And we're all just trying to, survive. We're all in it together.
You're kind of an anomaly in the minor league side in the sense that you talk about having a family and having kids and all that, and that's not necessarily the anomaly, but the fact that you get to live in a place where you're also playing now has got to be really cool, that you call Nashville home and your family's there. How do you juggle that once you get in season? It's, you talk about the PCL travel schedule and all that type of stuff, but at the same time, you got a chance to play with your kids today. What is that lifestyle like, now that you are in a place that you can kind of set down some roots? It's not a traditional office job, but at least it's better than being in Helena or somewhere like that with your family across the country.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can steal a chance to be with your family, you should. And I've been in Colorado Springs the last 4 years, which is one of the further away clubs, and so I would only see my family when we were here in Nashville for 8 days throughout the season, and then when they came out for summer, when school was out, June and July. So being here now is pretty awesome. We had Jose Altuve came through rehabbing for the Astros just the other day, and that's my son's favorite player. It's actually not me. It's my son's favorite player. It's not me. Maybe that'll change, but he plays second base, and he's always, for the last 3 or 4 years, like Altuve's this guy. And so we didn't get a chance to actually meet him, but Jose actually signed a ball for him. So I thought that was really neat. So that's awesome. The kind of stuff you get to share. My dad was a player and a coach, but when I was born, he was just getting into coaching. And so I grew up in the clubhouse, and I'd watch him manage a team and things like that. But for my kids to see me, pitch and play with some of these people that they are like, wow, that's Jose Altuve out there. That guy's like a 3-time batting champion. And, he goes up to like the waist of my dad as he's pitching, like that. Like the worlds are colliding, and they're starting to see that this is kind of a rare thing. I am an anomaly in a way. I usually say unicorn or Sasquatch, but yeah.
It's a much more fun way to describe it than my terminology. This season, we got to ask you about the AAA level this year and the offensive numbers and all that type of stuff. There's so much discussion that's gone into it. Minor leagues at the AAA level using the same baseballs as the major leagues are, and home runs have skyrocketed, and runs are up and all that type of stuff. What are your impressions being a guy who has been in the Coast League for the last few seasons and now seeing what it's like this year? How do you evaluate? What's your read on everything?
The balls do make a difference. And as a pitcher, I think a lot of times pitchers are at a disadvantage when in the Pacific Coast League, you're using one ball and then you get called up and suddenly your pitches aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I said it years ago. I was like, why don't we use the big league baseball? Because that's going to help pitchers along the way. Now, the flip side of that is it's really helping the offensive numbers of the hitters, of course. But I think in the long run, it's the right decision. But there is a difference. I think home runs, I saw a tweet when I had Twitter. I got suspended on Twitter. So
we'll talk about that.
Before I got suspended on Twitter. Before that, I saw a tweet where it was like, almost doubled the home runs for the first month of the minor league season throughout AAA. There's a reason for that. It's because the big league balls, they get hit harder and they travel further. But the idea is that pitchers now get to throw at that ball day in and day out, learn how to face hitters and get hitters out. I think you're going to see a wave the next couple years of guys going to big leagues and being able to compete right away. Maybe at times, rather, back in my day, if I went up there and didn't produce, I was sent down right away, and then hopefully I'd get it together and they'd bring me back. I think people are going to figure it out faster. So in the long run, it's going to be a good thing, but goodness gracious, I mean, the balls are flying out of this place.
It's the old Chicks Dig the Long Ball commercial from the 90s for Tom Glavine and who's that? Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux who were in that commercial? It's like now it's just everywhere.
I can't remember.
It might have been John Smoltz. But we'll pivot away from the baseball related stuff, and we'll talk about Tim Dillard, the legend, the social media maven who you are. First things first, I think most people have probably gotten to know you on social media the last few years for the videos that you make, the movie parodies and the original stuff that you make from clubhouses and all that type of stuff. Tell me about how that got started, because that doesn't just seem like something funny that you kind of came up with riding around in rookie ball back in the day. Like, were you always a big movie guy? Is this kind of something that as a kid you were interested in and it sort of carried it along as a hobby? How did this whole thing develop for you?
Yeah, I got two older brothers, and one of the funnest things that we ever did was when we hooked up the giant VCR or like the giant VHS camcorder to the VCR so you could like see yourself on the camera. Like, that was the coolest thing. And it would go as far as like you could tether it, to the TV. So, a couple like 3 feet or whatever. But we would make these videos for our grandparents and dress up like different characters and sing songs and things like that. And I don't know. I guess I just never really wanted to grow out of it. But like you said, I didn't do it early on in rookie ball and stuff because they didn't have smartphones.
Right.
I had a phone card. Guys are like, what are you talking about? Like, I had a phone card. That's the only way I could call my parents when I first signed. We didn't have cell phones. You kidding me? But to see the technology go from, and be where it is now, in 2015, a buddy of mine was just like, hey, man, you should try the Dub Smash app if you like making videos. And so that kind of took off from there because you can do everything on your phone, and you always have your phone. And I'd played 10 years of cards in the clubhouse, card games, board games, cribbage, all that kind of stuff. So this is just a new way of interacting with teammates and trying to have some fun, because it really is actually more fun to actually make these videos than to watch them.
What is the thing that you're proudest of having created in your minor league time? There's a video up, and we're going to talk about the Twitter thing, but there's a great one up on your Instagram right now about your reaction to the Twitter thing that we'll discuss in a moment. But there's a lot of them, like the things you've done dubbing over old movie scenes with your teammates. Yeah. Like, what are you proudest of?
I don't know. We did semi-pro, one of Will Ferrell's basketball, the one where he's a basketball player. And we did this whole huddle, and we had just gotten a new guy in, a guy that I'd known my whole career, Tom Wilhelmsen. We got him, and so he just shows up. We're in New Orleans, and I got guys to make it look like we were in an 80s basketball team or 70s basketball team. So, like, everyone's got their pants hiked up. We got our sleeves rolled up. Some of us have wigs on. We have headbands, and we do this whole 1-minute scene. And there was probably 8 people involved, because I think there were 6 people in the huddle. And then we had one guy was a referee, and one guy had to do the camera. So the way it came together was we're doing costumes, guys that have never been in videos, that, didn't really want to be in any videos. We're suddenly making referee outfits and, and helping with like wardrobe. So it ended up probably involving 10 or 12 people. And it took probably like 7 or 8 takes. I don't even know if it was that funny or not, but it was the feeling of accomplishment after that video was pretty astounding, because everybody had different little parts and facial expressions, and I don't know, it was pretty fun. And even though it was on the small scale, I felt like it was a lot behind it. So I was proud of that one.
What do you think it does?
Twitter took it down, I'm sure.
What do you think it does to kind of build bridges between your teammates? Because I think one of the coolest things about the stuff that you do is you get guys from every walk of life. Whoever's in your clubhouse, you try to get them in, whether it's Latin American players or other foreign guys or the American guys, college kids, high school kids. Everybody gets a chance to be part of these. What do you think that does in a clubhouse? Because not a whole lot of, it's like you and Cody Decker do fun stuff like that. It's not like every team gets one of these guys who's bringing everybody in to have all these creative ventures. What has that done throughout your career?
Well, what I find is when guys are being really honest about, the process and everything, it lets them just forget about the anxiety and stresses of being on the field, because it's a hard game. And, anytime you have these moments where you can kind of just concentrate on something else, it's very freeing. And that's what I found. Actually, a guy was in a video the other day. Actually, it's been about a month. And, just mentally, he's been having a hard time, just dealing with the next level of being in AAA and being away from home and traveling. And he told me, he was like, dude, that's the funnest thing I've done in 3 months is just being in this 1-minute video. And he goes, man, I just feel like this burden's been lifted. And that's what it is. We're really just trying to distract ourselves long enough because this game consumes you. Everywhere you turn is baseball. And what you do is if you do well one night, you come back the next day like wanting to do it well the next day. But then sometimes you fail and then you think about it all night. You don't rest. You wake up the next day thinking about it, and that's it. It's just a circle. So anytime you can alleviate yourself of that anxiety and that pressure, I think by all means you should. And the videos are just my way of, hopefully that contributes.
Who, among teammates that you've had, who would have the brightest future in acting if they gave it a shot? Chase Darno, probably. Okay. I think he's already like a singer or something. I think he's got his own band. I don't think I've heard his music, but I think he has a band. He's one of those dudes who can just do everything. Yeah,
like he had a small part in spring training. I just need him for like 5 seconds. And, just his reactions and stuff and being able to, where he looks, how the mouth, mouths the words, folding the arms, all that kind of stuff. Like he's probably had an acting class. I'm going to go ahead and say he's had one. I don't know for sure, but I'm saying he's had more than one acting class.
Okay, well now we got to figure that out. We're going to put all of our minor league resources on figuring out what Chase Darno's acting chops actually are. Okay, now we'll get to it. Earlier this month, for some reason, the cesspool of trash that is Twitter.com decided that of all of its problems, Tim Dillard's account should be suspended. Of everything that goes on Twitter, Tim Dillard is the one who should be suspended for some reason. And that suspension is still going on for some campaign. What is the deal with that? What's going on? Minor league baseball players across the country got behind the hashtag Free Dilly, and which is a nice movie tip of the cap. What is the deal here? What's going on?
Oh, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea.
So they don't notify you at all? Like you just got an email or something that said you're suspended?
No email, nothing. Somebody texted me and said we were in Oklahoma City, and I walked into the clubhouse, and you don't get service till you connect to the Wi-Fi. But I've been around the league so long, my phone automatically connects when I get in the clubhouse. I know all the passwords, and so I walk in there, and all of a sudden I get a text message, and there's a buddy of mine that. I think he's with the Angels now, but he's like, dude, you just blocked me on Twitter. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I did not because I don't even know how to block somebody on Twitter. And then somebody else texted me and goes, dude, your account is suspended on Twitter. So I looked it up, and sure enough, the first thing that pops up is like, congratulations, you've been suspended for obscene behavior.
I really hope it said congratulations.
Yeah. I was just like, what? I was like, I don't know what's going on here. And so I didn't know what to do, so they said they had a little link, and you click it, and basically it just sends an email to Twitter support. And so I just filled out the thing of, my name or whatever, and they were like, here's 20 characters to try to plead your case. And I was like, don't know what I did, and, that was it. And they sent me back a case number that says your account's being reviewed. And so that was the end of the story. That's all I got.
It's in some type of review service, we know right now. There's something. I have absolutely zero faith in anything that goes on in the Twitter offices that something proper is going to be done. But at least they got in touch with you to say we're looking into it.
No, all they communicates by email, and I'm pretty sure that was
automated
electronic.
Email. Okay.
Yeah, automated email. Like I sent it, and it was like, please don't reply to this. This is an automated email. We're reviewing your case number 9,000,078 whatever. So I was like, okay, that's it. And didn't think much of it. And I still don't. I like Twitter. It's easier than all the other platforms because you could do text and Twitter polls. Oh, I miss the Twitter polls. But, somebody asked me the other day, like, what have you done since you've, lost Twitter? And I was like, just different things. I've read a couple books, learned 2 of my kids' middle names, just got in touch with nature.
You've enjoyed life again?
Yeah. I have this new sense of I don't know. I can't do anything about it, so I'm really not even worried about it.
Well, the good news is where Jack, whatever his last name is, with that weird goatee and strange face, where he is losing out now, the brass at Instagram is benefiting because Tim's over there as well at Tim Dillard, and he's posting Twitter suspension videos, so you can go there. The first one is hysterical, which is just Tim crying in random places in the clubhouse, threatening to shave his beard, all that type of stuff, so you can find Tim on Instagram. Hopefully it gets created or corrected sooner rather than later. I have, again, zero faith in those people at Twitter. But we're all behind you, and we're all behind #FreeDilly.
Yeah, I don't think it. Yeah, I appreciate it. No, I don't think it's on my end. I just know I didn't do anything obscene. I didn't offend anybody. I wasn't bothering anybody. So, yeah, if it's permanent suspension, I'm okay with that because I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm okay with that. So, I don't know. I think I'm just going to start living my life on Instagram, do the best I can.
Let me ask you this before we get you out of here. If there is one hitter that you have faced who you have had like maybe outlandishly good fortune against, who like made something up and reported you to Twitter, who would that be most likely to be? Maybe it's just some dude that you struck out like 18 times in 21 at bats.
You know who it'd be? It'd be Taylor Davis for the Cubs. Catcher.
Okay.
That guy. Because I didn't know this, but I've played against him for the last like 5 years. And a couple of years ago, he was like, dude, do you know that I've never gotten on base against you? And I was like, well, you're the one guy that hasn't got on base off of me. He's like, no, I'm being serious. And so what was really funny is after he said that was like the first game of the series. So then later, a couple days later, I'm facing him. And, I mean, it is pouring down rain. It's in Iowa. It's freezing early in the year. I mean, there's like ice forming in my beard. And I'm slipping all over the mound. I'm giving up hits. I'm hitting people. I got 2 outs. He comes up to the plate, and all I could think was, this is going to be the time where he does get a hit. And I ended up getting him to pop it up to the infield. Even though all other 8 people in the lineup got on base off me, he didn't. And so even to this day, I got him out earlier this year. So, yeah. So he probably did report me. Man.
Well, now we know. Now we know. And if there are multiple things and Taylor Davis, by the way, is somebody else who got a lot of notoriety last year with his video persona, where he would find the ballpark cams wherever they were in Iowa and would just like make sweet eye contact loving with them. So maybe that's why. And he's another lower round guy, 49th round pick from 2008, who's still playing pro ball. Maybe this is it. Maybe we found it.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
good
it.
to know.
I mean, he's definitely one of those guys. Yeah, he definitely, he sees the game for what it is. Like, people think, oh, you can't have fun because it takes away from you playing hard, which I think is the opposite. I think if you can find a way to have fun while you're playing, I think it makes you a better player. And I think it just, the infectious freedom. I mean, to be his teammate, I bet those guys are like, wow, this guy's just the same person every day. He has fun, he plays hard. And that's really what everybody wants.
That is pretty cool. And Taylor Davis, if you want to come on and defend yourself, we'll provide you that platform. We're all interested in equal time here, obviously. We don't want to throw out baseless accusations, but as we've established, it appears that he's the villain. Tim Dillard is on Instagram. He is at Tim Dillard on Instagram, and you can join the movement, #FreeDilly. But beyond all that, big congratulations, Tim, on the records with Nashville, and keep it rolling. We'll see you in Texas sooner rather than later, and thanks a ton for the time today.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome in Benjamin Hill for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. A bunch to talk about as we're fully into finally diving into promo names and jerseys and all that kind of stuff as we've gotten toward the time of the year where kids are getting out of school and the full promotional calendar is blowing up. And Ben joins us. Hi, Ben.
Hello, Tyler, and hello, Sam. Sitting to my left, Sam is. Tyler is in another state, another time zone.
Sitting
way left.
Way left.
Way to the left. To the left. Tyler Bond is far left.
Not inaccurate. Does it feel like that to you, Ben, where it's obviously teams kind of hold a lot in reserve for April and even into May when they know that, the weather can be dicey and kids aren't going to be out of school yet and the crowds probably aren't going to be as big as they are over the summer. Does it feel, and this is a conversation we've probably had before, but like the promo stuff really starts to get rolling toward the end of May?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe not officially in terms of how you look at in terms of how the seasons are actually, denoted on our calendars. But the summer officially really starts around Memorial Day. And school will be letting out soon, and the weather's good, and all that's to say, you're not going to throw out your big guns in terms of special guests at the ballpark, in terms of a lot of the real significant theme nights, giveaway items. We've seen some good stuff so far, but most of the time teams are going to keep their premier nights in their back pockets until around this time of year, and certainly June, July, into August, when people are more free and easy to go out to games, spend money, have better weather, et cetera. So I think, from here on out, we will see an increased amount of kind of premier promotions. And then, of course, in just about 2 weeks, the short season league start as well. So that brings Sam is psyched. That brings 2 full leagues, another 12 or 20 teams between 4 leagues. 40 teams into the orbit between rookie level and Class A short season. So, we are really ramping it up promo-wise, but just, baseball-wise. We're entering the peak season, peak baseball season.
And speaking about ramping it up in terms of promos, one thing you got to write about over the weekend was the Rochester Hustlers, which came to be on Saturday. There was a 101-year hiatus between the Rochester Red Wings playing as the Rochester Hustlers. What can you tell us about what happened there?
Yeah, well, we talk about all sorts of, one-night rebrandings in minor league baseball. The Hustlers is in the category that you may have heard this term before, a faux back, meaning that they are an identity that existed in the teams in Rochester's baseball history, but the uniforms the team wore when they suited up as the Hustlers this past Saturday were designed in the present day, if you can follow all that.
Okay.
Our friend and colleague Josh Jackson did a story fairly recently about a similar endeavor in Durham, the Tobacconists. Durham's did have a team called the Tobacconists, way back turn of the century, but the team wore uniforms they just designed, for the present day. So the Hustlers throwback in Rochester, when you're looking at a minor league baseball market like Rochester, you have such a rich history there. Rochester has had professional baseball dating back to 1877. Last year they did a faux back night where they played as the Hop Bitters, which was one of their teams in, 1879 and 1880. So this year they're like, let's look back at our history again and pick a different identity, and they went with the Hustlers. The Hustlers played in the Eastern League, not our current Eastern League, but a league called the Eastern League, 1909, 1910, 1911, and then played in the International League from 1912 through 1918. And interestingly, Rochester has had a team in the International League ever since those 1912 Rochester Hustlers, every single season. And in doing a little research, that is the longest marriage of league and locale, in all of minor league baseball. There's no other minor league market that's had a team in the same league consecutively longer than Rochester in the International League since 1912. They changed their name to the Red Wings in 1928, and so that's a real long run as the Red Wings. But regardless, you're looking at a lot of baseball history between 1877 and 1928 in terms of when they did for a time play in different leagues and have different names and blah, blah, blah. All of which is to say they were the Hustlers for a number of years. 1918 was the last season the Hustlers played. And, they Big John Ganzel was the team manager. He co-owned a pool hall that had a dedicated room to talking baseball. Kind of the whole identity and the story of this team kind of fits like the stereotype you might have of baseball in the 1910s, kind of rough and tumble, gamblers, a little boozy, playing pool, that kind of thing. So they embraced this Hustlers identity, gave it a pool hall kind of theme. Had a kind of turn back the clock aspect to the evening itself. The evening was preceded by a vintage baseball game. That's baseball, 2 words, because that's how it was back in the old days, before it all became one word. Front office members dressing in period attire. The PA announcer standing on top of the dugout with a megaphone to announce the batters. And they had a lot more planned, but guess what? This game got rained out in the second inning, and then they continued it the next day, not as the Hustlers, but because they only had a couple innings as the Hustlers, even though they got some of their elements in and wore the uniforms for a bit of time, and the weather was good for the vintage baseball game beforehand. The Hustlers will make a return, I believe, in July at some point. I'm sure the team is going to announce that soon, and hopefully play a full 9 innings of the Hustlers. But I think any team that plays in a market with a rich history. I think it's a really fun way to do a cool promotion that really ties into your local history by doing like a faux back like this. Looking back at your history and saying, what can we honor next? And I was talking to the general manager, Dan Mason, Red Wings general manager, and he's like, yeah, I think we'll keep doing this sort of thing. And he was mentioning other team names that Rochester had through the years, and one of them was the Beau Brummels. And I was just like, what? So maybe someday they're going to have a faux back where they suit up as the Beau Brummels.
You're going to have to explain that.
Do we even know what that is?
I don't know much about Beau Brummel, but I feel like, wasn't he the original like foppish dandy?
Is he like Beau
Dandy
Bridges?
fop. A very sartorially influential individual.
Well, now I got to look him up.
don't know.
Beau Brummel.
We have to look into it. But how there got to be a team in
George
Rochester called the Beau Brummels, I don't know.
That's amazing. He was an iconic figure in Regency, England, according to Wikipedia, and for many years, the arbiter of men's fashion. So, yeah, totally. Baseball crossover, man.
Yeah, so there you go. I hope they do that. So anyway, I think Rochester does a great job with these kind of promotions. I hope they suit up as the Beau Brummels in the future. And Hustlers look like they're coming back later this summer, hopefully for better weather.
Ben, let's continue the conversation with a story on. You kind of alluded to this one last week, and this story will run. We're recording this on Wednesday. It's up if you're listening to us on Thursday. But Jake Eisenberg, who is a radio voice of the Richmond Flying Squirrels, was formerly with another couple of minor league teams. You and he have a similar life path as of right now in your not just baseball careers, but in life. Tell us about this latest on the road story.
Yeah, this will be my last proper feature from the trip I took to Fayetteville, Lynchburg, Richmond earlier in the month. When I was in Richmond, I talked for quite a long time with Jake Eisenberg, currently the Flying Squirrels #2 broadcaster. And my angle with him is he has celiac disease. As many of you listening to this show know, I've mentioned in the past, I have celiac disease, and I was just, inherently interested in someone who's living the baseball lifestyle and a gluten-free lifestyle at the same time. So, it was 10 years ago that he got diagnosed, so he was kind of looking back at like this anniversary for him of 10 years since he was diagnosed. And May is Celiac Awareness Month, so I figured let's tie these things together. And I'm writing a story about him, about his career path and some personal history on Jake, but also interweaving throughout the story, what it's like to live in the world or to work in the world of baseball gluten free. Because, as you know, wheat rye barley isn't gluten. A lot of ballpark food is no good. If you're a broadcaster, a lot of those press box meals are kind of hard to do. If you're traveling, your options are limited. I know all these things firsthand. So being Awareness Month, you don't want to preach to anyone, but, awareness, that's what it's about, making people more aware. So hopefully, if you are not gluten-free yourself, you might understand, some of the challenges people face or kind of understand what it is. I could go on a lot of rants, when I tell people I have celiac disease. And instead of people asking me about what's that like, they just tell you what little they know about it, which is very frustrating sometimes. Like, okay, great, but I have that disease. So, it's really interesting about your, brother's ex-girlfriend who went gluten-free for 2 months. Thank you for letting me know. And thank you for assuming the symptoms I have. And thank you for talking vaguely of some conspiracy about genetic engineer or, genetic modified foods. And maybe that's why it's happening. I don't know. But look, man, I got the disease. So I wrote the story. Jake Eisenberg, Richmond Flying Squirrels broadcaster, gluten-free broadcaster. And he says, I quote him here, he's like, I'm not looking to be known as, the gluten-free broadcaster. It's not part of his like brand or identity. But, we talked for a long time and, it was, I don't want to quite say emotional, but I think he really enjoyed sort of opening it up and talking to another celiac just about what it's like to be in the world of baseball and, deal with the challenges of celiac disease. We both acknowledge it in the scheme of things could be a lot worse. It's not about being a poor us, but, whenever you meet a like-minded individual or someone who's going through the same things you are, you can't help but relate. And, Jake grew up in Port Washington in Long Island, New York, a big Mets fan, and Kevin Burkhardt was then the SNY roving on-field reporter for the Mets, and he has celiac disease. So it was interesting, Jake was saying in the wake of his diagnosis, he would go to the Mets games, meet Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin Burkhardt would host celiac awareness nights at the ballpark annually. And he was saying how that was inspirational to him as someone who wanted to work in that field to see someone like that who was able to do it. And, Jake is saying, I'm not I don't think I'm here to inspire necessarily, or I'm not so like full of myself to think that I'm going to be a huge inspiration. But I think it's an important point that the same way Kevin Burkhardt, inspires him, getting these stories out there, other people might, who are going through that kind of thing can be like, all right, he's doing it. It'll be fine. We'll work it out. So I think it's always good to have examples, and hopefully Jake can be an example for others the same way Kevin Burkhardt was for him.
That is a really cool story. That's up on the site right now, the latest On the Road column. Ben, what else is going on? We've got the next trip coming up in a little bit, which we've discussed a little bit over the last couple of weeks. What else is coming up for you?
Yeah, well, I think next week we'll really go into the details of my next trip. That starts on June 12th, Amarillo, Albuquerque, El Paso. Just announced the designated eaters for that trip. So that one's coming up. Got still some odds and sods from the road, some designated eater posts from my last trip still to come. And I'll be kind of trying to dive into the world of promos over the next couple of weeks because, as we said, things are really starting to pop in that realm too. Any
that you can think of coming up here in the next couple of days that immediately stand out to you?
Off the top of my head, that's a good question. Well, as we're speaking, I think the Rickwood Classic just ended, so that one's on my mind right now as a bin for sure. And tonight, the Richmond Flying Squirrels, the team for whom Jake Eisenberg calls games for us, they're giving away a Patrick Henry bobblehead. So if you like your history, a Patrick Henry bobblehead, courtesy of the Richmond Flying Squirrels, tonight. So it'll be done by if you're listening to this when this podcast comes out tomorrow. But I guess I'm one day at a time. So I guess I was looking at my spreadsheet, and those are some of today's promos that stood out. I stay in the present moment, Sam.
Give me bobblehead or give me death. Benjamin Hill is on Twitter at BensBiz, and you can read the On the Road story right now at MILB.com. And thanks, Ben. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. And the Ben's Biz page where you can see all my work has a new URL, even easier, MILB.com/BensBiz. That's it. All my work, there's no longer the blog. You just want to see some Ben's Biz stuff. You're jonesing for some Ben's Biz content. MILB.com/BensBiz. Thank you in advance for bookmarking it and checking it every day. Thank you.
We have one foul ball we got to get to before we wrap up this episode, and it is breaking news from today. The Houston Astros top prospect Forrest Whitley is headed to the injured list at AAA Round Rock with shoulder fatigue. He will reportedly rehab that injury at Astros camp in Florida. The right-hander, it's not been a good year. It hasn't been an easy year for Forrest Whitley as of yet. He's got a 12.21 ERA over 24 1/3 with the AAA Round Rock Express, and this may be part of the reason for that, if this is an issue that's been going on for a little while with Forrest Whitley. But last year he comes back from the suspension and combined in 23 outings. He put up a 2.83 ERA at 3 different levels, including a 1.84 mark at AA. He makes nope. Looking at his 2017s. 3, 2, 1. Last year he comes back, had that shortened season, 8 starts with AA Corpus Christi, a 3.76 ERA. But this year's been rough, and now he's headed to the injured list, and that's tough news for the Astros.
Yeah. I mean, you would hope maybe it has been kind of a shoulder issue, and that's to blame for some of these, really, really tough outings. He gave up 7 earned runs over 2 innings in his last start. He's going back to Florida rehab, hopefully some time off and getting right. Hopefully we get the Forrest Whitley back that made him the top pitching prospect in baseball coming into this year. Because when he's on, he's got one of the best pitching arsenals in all of minor league baseball with the control to boot. So, really unfortunate to see him go on the IL, but given the start to the season, it's probably best for all parties. And hopefully, we're talking about him forcing his way to Houston a little after the All-Star break, if all goes well in his rehab. So keeping an eye out for him. But, Forrest Whitley going to be out for at least a little bit of time.
And we'll wrap up this week's episode by telling you to watch MILB.TV. You can subscribe right now with short season leagues getting started just a short period of time. A lot of those games will be on MILB.TV as soon as those leagues get rolling along. And Sam, what are you watching this weekend?
Yeah, so I have my eye on one game this weekend. This is kind of late breaking news as well for us recording the podcast. By the time you guys hear this, it won't be breaking for you anymore. But Phillies 2017 first rounder Adam Hazley has been promoted to AAA Lehigh Valley. Hazley, coming out of the University of Virginia, was thought to be a pretty well-rounded outfielder, pretty good hitter. Has fallen out of the top 100 because he hasn't been as standout as potentially the industry may have liked in terms of many of his tools. But he has turned it on here in May at AA Reading. He hit .337 with a .410 on-base percentage and a .584 slugging percentage. Hit 5 home runs, had 3 steals in 24 games. The Phillies looked at that and said, okay, yeah, you're not getting challenged much anymore. We're going to move you on to AAA Lehigh Valley. So I'm going to keep my eye this weekend on Lehigh Valley's games at Scranton Wilkes-Barre, particularly on Saturday at 4:05 Eastern. Hazley will be going up against Randall Delgado, who the Yankees signed actually just this week, just a couple days ago, as kind of minor league depth. He is a major leaguer, obviously, 271 games of major league experience on his resume. This will be Hazley's kind of welcome to AAA moment. Hey, you're one step away from the majors. Okay, go out there and face a guy who was in the majors just last year. Probably have a few more of those by the time we get to Saturday, but I think Saturday could be a real good test for him and see how he is able to carry his recent form at Reading to AAA Lehigh Valley. So that's my game of the week for me. Tyler, what do you got your eye on?
Yeah, I'm going to go to AA Birmingham in the White Sox system. Luis Robert, the 21-year-old outfielder who just torched the Carolina League in his starts of the season, put up a 1432 OPS there. He got the bump up to Birmingham. He's been really, really good with the Barons so far. He had a 4-for-5 night with a walk-off hit on Tuesday, and so far is slashing 309, 363, 543 there. And Luis Robert and the Birmingham Barons will be home playing host to the Montgomery Biscuits. That series started today with the Rickwood Classic, in which they played started yesterday, but they played the Rickwood Classic today, in which they played in one of the oldest surviving ballparks in all professional baseball. Pretty cool series pretty cool matchup every year between Birmingham and a Southern League opponent. That game wasn't on MILB TV, but back home for the rest of the series at Regions Field, they will be, and you can catch Luis Robert and the rest of the Barons right there and then. And that'll do it for this week's 211th episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. Big thanks to Tim Dillard for joining the show. Again, you can find him on Instagram and nowhere else. And for Sam Dexter, I'm Tyler Vaughn. We'll talk to you next week.